Hey everyone, let's talk about a question that's been around for centuries. Why do people help each other? Is it out of genuine kindness, or do we do it because, deep down, it's really all about us? Today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating debates in human behavior: altruism versus self-interest. Altruism is all about helping others with no expectation of getting anything in return. It's the idea that you're willing to lend a hand just to make someone else's life a little better. But then there's the opposite idea, self-interest. According to this view, we help others mainly because it somehow benefits us, either by making us feel good or by improving our social standing. So, what's the truth? Are we hardwired to be selfless heroes, or are we just using kindness as a way to get ahead? Let's break it down. To understand where this debate comes from, let's take a look at the origins of altruism and self-interest. Altruism, in its purest sense, is actually quite rare in nature. Most animals don't go out of their way to help others unless it serves some sort of survival purpose. But humans are different. We perform acts of kindness that don't seem to have any direct benefit to us. Think about firefighters running into a burning building to save people they don't even know, or people donating money to charities for causes that might not affect them personally. It almost seems like we're built to help others, even if it doesn't help us. But is that really the case? Some psychologists and scientists believe that even our most selfless acts are still motivated by self-interest. This is known as psychological egoism, the idea that we're wired to look out for ourselves, even when it seems like we're doing things for others. For example, when we donate to charity, we might feel a warm, fuzzy feeling inside. We feel good about ourselves, which might be a subtle reward for our selfless act. This warm, fuzzy feeling is often called the helper's high, and studies show that helping others actually releases dopamine in our brains, the same chemical that makes us feel pleasure. So, are we really doing it for them, or are we doing it for that dopamine boost? Let's take a closer look at some examples. Imagine you see a person in need, maybe someone who's fallen on the street. You decide to stop and help. You feel like a good person afterward, and you might even get a few admiring glances from others who saw you lend a hand. That's altruism, right? Well, maybe. But what if you helped because you wanted to avoid feeling guilty for walking past, or because you knew you'd feel better about yourself afterward? Does that make the act any less generous, or does it simply reveal the subtle ways self-interest creeps into our actions? Now, let's get into a theory that adds another layer to this whole altruism versus self-interest debate: reciprocal altruism. This theory suggests that we help others because, somewhere down the line, we expect they'll help us back. It's like an unspoken social contract. You scratch my back, and I'll scratch yours. It's not exactly selfish, but it's not purely selfless either. In fact, some scientists argue that this kind of mutual back-scratching is why humans have been able to build societies and cooperate with each other. By helping others, we create bonds, networks, and communities that are essential for survival. It's a win-win. Take friendships, for example. When you help a friend move into a new apartment, it's a nice thing to do, sure. But let's be real, part of you is also hoping that they'll remember this when you need help next month. Or think about lending a hand at work. Sometimes, people are more than happy to stay late and help a coworker because they hope it'll mean they'll get help in return. It's altruistic, but there's also a little bit of self-interest at play. This isn't to say that we're only motivated by what we get in return, but it's definitely a factor that influences us, even if we don't always realize it. But here's the twist. What about people who perform random acts of kindness for strangers they'll never see again? Think about people who donate anonymously to charity, or those who volunteer without expecting any form of recognition. That seems purely altruistic, doesn't it? But some psychologists argue that even anonymous acts might still have hidden rewards. Donating to charity or volunteering can make us feel like good people. It can boost our self-esteem, create a sense of purpose, or give us a deeper feeling of connection to our community. In a way, these hidden rewards still point to a subtle form of self-interest. Now, let's consider the big question. Does it really matter? If helping others makes us feel good, isn't that a win-win? Does the motivation behind an action make it any less valuable? For some, the answer is yes. They argue that the purest form of altruism would involve helping others with absolutely zero personal gain, like anonymously giving your last dollar to someone in need. But here's the kicker. True selflessness, according to some scientists, might actually be impossible. They argue that as long as you feel good about doing good, there's always a trace of self-interest involved. That doesn't mean we're selfish, it just means we're human. Let's take a quick look at evolutionary psychology to add another layer to this conversation. Evolutionary psychologists argue that our brains are wired to promote behaviors that enhance our survival and reproduction. So, while we might think we're being selfless, our brains are really looking out for number one. By helping others, we strengthen social bonds, build trust, and improve our reputation, which ultimately benefits us in the long run. In other words, altruism might just be a clever trick played by evolution to get us to work together and support each other, which, in turn, helps us survive as a species. Of course, there are also people who believe in pure altruism. This idea suggests that some people are capable of true selflessness, doing things purely out of compassion with no expectation of any reward. Think about people who dedicate their lives to helping others in extreme ways, like doctors working in war zones or volunteers in natural disaster areas. Some of these individuals might genuinely put others first, even at great personal risk. But even then, critics might say that they're motivated by a sense of duty or purpose, which brings them personal fulfillment. Now, where does this leave us? Is it possible to live a life of pure altruism, or are we always going to be a little bit selfish? The reality might be somewhere in between. Maybe, instead of trying to be completely selfless, we should embrace the fact that helping others makes us feel good too. Instead of feeling guilty about it, we could see it as a positive thing, a reminder that our own happiness is often tied to the happiness of those around us. In a way, the line between altruism and self-interest might not be as clear-cut as we think. It might be more like a spectrum, where sometimes we lean more towards selflessness, and other times, self-interest guides our actions. So, what do you think? Are we all just a little selfish, or is true altruism possible? And does the motivation behind kindness even matter as long as good is being done? Maybe at the end of the day, the act of helping others, whether it's for them, for us, or a bit of both, is what counts the most. After all, a world where people do good, regardless of their reasons, is probably a world worth living in. And with that, we've reached the end of our journey through the fascinating world of altruism and self-interest. Let us know in the comments below, what motivates you to help others? Do you think true altruism exists? Or is there always a hint of self-interest behind our actions? Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more thought-provoking topics just like this one. See you next time!